What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at Morocco, the first African team to reach the World Cup semifinals, and we're going to be looking at the tactics they'll use to try and win the World Cup and how effective they'll be against France in the next round. Now I'm going to do a 4-part series on each of the semifinal teams, and each video will be titled how that team in particular can win the World Cup. So this video, how Morocco will win the World Cup. Let's get right into the tactics. And before we do that, check out both my books and my new tactics course in the description below. And I'm using Keyframe to make this video. Check that out in the description as well. Let's get right into it. So Morocco, they defend in a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-5-1. They go with their narrow back four, one holding midfielder, with their two eights jumping further forward to then cover the half spaces with their cover shadow. Now why this works is because the wide midfielders stay more narrow and can track runs deeper. So Portugal's fullbacks or their width came typically through their fullbacks, which forced the Moroccan midfielders to play a little bit higher up, but they'll go somewhere between the eights jumping and the fullbacks in terms of height. So they'll cover the half spaces as well as the holding midfielder, covering the cover shadow of the two eights. Now the central striker will block the holding midfielder with his cover shadow, forcing play into wide areas. So this is a really interesting tactic because many times we have the Moroccan number 8s, the central midfielders, stepping forward and pressing the first line. Then we have the holding midfielder being covered by the center striker, and the team shifting across, forcing the ball to the wide area to try and win the ball with numbers around it and in numerical superiority situations that helps them transition and is why they're so dangerous. Now we see their narrow back four again, with their fullbacks positioned in the half spaces, supporting the holding midfielder and wide midfielder, covering the advanced 8, so they can control the space between the lines so players from Portugal can't become free and create superiority in these dangerous areas. Now their compactness is very well drilled and they hardly miss a beat when it comes to the spacing and the relationships between players. And as we see the team start to look to force the ball into the wide area. We'll have a 3 against 2 in this situation, with the central striker making his way. And one of the key aspects of this defensive setup is because they use their cover shadows to block access between the lines, like this number 8 does. We block access between the lines to the offensive midfielders of Portugal, which allows them to have more active players around the ball, actively challenging for the ball, and then in positions further forward when they do win the ball that they can then transition, and it's one of the things that makes them so dangerous going forward. So now what we see when the press is initiated, when their cues are triggered, we have our narrow back four giving the press support from a deeper area, so if they do get broken, they still have numbers behind the ball and can defend in the penalty area if need be. This is then followed suit by their holding midfielder who stays a little bit deeper. But once the press is triggered, we'll see that the holding midfielder is on the ball for Portugal. The number 8 had jumped to press the first line, but once the ball goes into these central areas, we have the players now shifting across and forcing the ball into only one possible option. So the ball will have to come to the Portuguese fullback, or that is where it will most likely go from this situation. Because of the Moroccan players pressing from in to out, forcing the ball wide, and because of players in deeper areas, the holding midfielder and wide midfielders, followed by the weak side number 8, staying deeper in a more central position, taking away any further progressive options between the lines and making them inaccessible to the ball carrier in the center now. So what this will then do is, because of the spatial orientation, we'll have players looking to press the ball into wide areas, blocking off circulation avenues, and making play very predictable for Morocco to further press the ball. So when they do win the ball in the wide area, in the same sequence we just saw, we have our new player on the ball, and we essentially have 5 Moroccan players against 4 Portuguese players. So from here, the ball carrier can find ways to create advantages, positional advantages against Portugal, and exploit this superiority against them. So this was largely effective and has been throughout the tournament. And because of the level that they can press and their mid block, setting traps in the wide area, and their level to then transition and create superiority going forward has been exceptional. So I expect this to continue, and it's very hard to have a national team because of the lack of time they spend together to have such well drilled systems and structures in place for them to produce such good defensive concepts. So these are all things to look forward to. Let me know in the comments below how you think Morocco will do in their semifinal versus France. Let me know if you think they can win the World Cup as well.